In this section, I'm going to show how to configure Coastal Explorer to get it ready to go. Most of what we do for configuration comes from the main menu, upper left-hand corner. First thing I want to check is what version I'm running. So from the main menu, I select Licensing and Add-ons, and I read the version number at the top of the screen, and that is the current version as of today. Other things you can do within the add-on Licensing and Add-ons window is click on the Add-ons tab, and Coastal Explorer has some free add-ons such as Active Captain and Atlantic Cruising Club cruising guides. I'll start with the Active Captain. Active Captain is a website. You go to it from a web browser and you select a username and password. Then within Coastal Explorer, you click the installation, type in the username and password you created on their website, so you're telling Coastal Explorer what your login credentials are, and Coastal Explorer will initiate a synchronization of the Active Captain database onto this computer. Started this, you notice it launched a synchronizing window, so we might as well talk about synchronizing right now. Every time you launch Coastal Explorer and you have an internet connection, Coastal Explorer checks to see if there are any updates to the program itself, any charts, which we'll look at shortly, and then also any updates to guidebooks and the ship's log, which we'll get to. So right now it's downloading the Active Captain database for the first time. I'm going to pause the video while this completes. Okay, the Active Captain download is completed. So now, when we get to the guidebook section, we'll see that we'll have access to all the Active Captain information even when we're not on the internet with our computer at this point in time. And then each time we do get on the internet and synchronize, the Active Captain database will be updated with whatever's changed. I'll close the synchronizing window, and I'm going to add another free add-on down here towards the bottom. We notice we have the Atlantic Cruising Club's Marina Guides. It's a misleading name. It's not just for the Atlantic side of the country. There is a guide to Pacific Northwest marinas. I'm going to go ahead and click the install button here, and this will download their information for free. And once it's on the computer, you won't need to download it again. I'm going to pause this video while I wait for the download. And there, it's finished updating everything. So now, when we get to our guidebook section, we'll see that we'll have Active Captain data and Atlantic Cruising Club guide to Pacific Northwest marinas. Another configuration item with Coastal Explorer has to do with NOAA charts, the free NOAA charts. If I go to the chart portfolio from the main menu and I select the plus install charts at the top of the screen, it opens up an install charts window, and Coastal Explorer has a mechanism called chart subscriptions. We have another video that deals with this in more detail. But if I go to the chart subscriptions button for the raster charts, I can tell Coastal Explorer that I want to keep Coast Guard District 13 Pacific Northwest raster charts up to date. I'll do the same thing for the NOAA ENCs, the vector charts. I'll select District 13. I'll say OK. It'll check for new charts right now. It launches another synchronization, and it says everything's up to date because I had already updated my charts recently. Close that, and I'll close the chart portfolio for now. Back in the chart portfolio, another option Coastal Explorer has is to purchase charts. The latest update to Coastal Explorer 2011 supports CMAP charts, so we can look at CMAP charts that can be purchased from within the program. In the lower half of the left-hand side here, I click on CMAP charts under the chart store. These are charts that can be purchased. The CMAP chart regions are listed by name, or if I click the little icon at the top of the screen here, by geographic regions, and I can click on these and see different things and find out what these various charts would cost. Just there. I can also see NOAA charts that are available, raster and vector. Also the USACE IENCs, those are the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers inland ENCs, which are river charts for the western rivers. But from within Coastal Explorer, we can keep our U.S. charts up to date for free, and we can also purchase and install CMAP charts. Also, Canadian Hydrographic Services charts are available for purchase. Those are actually delivered on a disc, though. If you decide to buy those, we have to mail you a disc. Something else that shows up under the main menu, which can be very useful, is the help function. Coastal Explorer has extensive documentation built into the program, and it begins by going to the main menu and selecting help. One of my favorite topics that I point people to is the keyboard shortcuts, which will tell you about all the various keyboard shortcuts Coastal Explorer has. That's a very handy place to go look for it. You might want to print that out and keep it handy until you memorize some of these keyboard shortcuts. Also, any place within the program, this question mark up here in the upper right-hand side of the chart panel will give you help. Basically brings up the same thing when you're here, but if you're in some area of the program, it'll bring up the help that's related to that area of the program. Also, pressing the F1 key on your keyboard will do the same thing. So if I press F1, I see that same help window. I'll go ahead and close that. Another thing you probably want to do initially is to configure your vessel and electronics from the main menu. First of all, to configure the vessel, you can type in characteristics of your vessel, vessel name, 33 feet. The next thing to configure are data ports if you have any devices connected to your computer, such as a GPS antenna or interface to a chart plotter or an AIS unit. The port settings button will show us what is plugged in right now. I have a GPS antenna plugged in, and it shows us that it's configured to NMEA 0183 4800 baud. That's pretty standard. If you have other devices here, this might be a place where you could click on these boxes and do some additional configuration. Something else that's very handy from the data ports window is the troubleshooter. If I look at my port at this point, the GPS sensor, I can see that Coastal Explorer knows that it's receiving NMEA 0183 data. There's the data it's receiving. Turns out it's a GPS antenna. I'm in a building, so it doesn't have very good reception right this minute. It does have a little reception, but not very good, so we can't get a fix off of it in here. But this is a very handy troubleshooting tool to use because it'll show you the data coming in the various COM ports. Okay. Something else you might want to configure, again, back to the main menu, is options. There are general options, such as how often does Coastal Explorer save changes to your documents, things, but measurements is a very handy option people might want to use. I tend to think in feet, so I like to have my depth set to feet. If I were heights as well, speeds are adjustable, but this is where you set the units of measurement that Coastal Explorer will use. Another thing to configure are alerts. Coastal Explorer can alert you to things, depth issues, cross-track, boundary crossing, obstacles, via a voice alert. Some people like to turn that off because it can be kind of annoying at times, but if you want to turn on or off the alerts or modify it, this is where you do it. Also, synchronization options. When Coastal Explorer first starts up, it checks to see if there's an internet connection, and if there is, it tries to synchronize. We've seen the synchronization earlier with the charts and guidebooks, but it tries to synchronize all that stuff when the program is first started. If you were ever in an environment where you had limited internet bandwidth or you didn't want that to happen, you could uncheck that, and then the only time Coastal Explorer would try to synchronize is when you click the synchronize button up here in the upper right hand corner. You can also tell Coastal Explorer to automatically keep itself up to date, which means download the updates and also download chart updates, either automatically or to just tell you that updates are available but let you choose when to download them. Regardless of these settings, installation is always something you have to explicitly click an install button for. Whether it's downloaded or not can be controlled, but installation always requires user intervention because you might not want to install something right then, so we always let that happen. Okay, so that's that for those kind of options. The last configuration thing, which we will look at again later perhaps, but is over on the right hand side in the instrument panel, the task pane. Coastal Explorer has a configurable instrument panel. As a matter of fact, you can have multiple instrument panels if you want. But to add virtual instruments to this instrument panel, you simply click in some unused space, select Add Another Panel, an Add Instruments panel appears. Perhaps I want course over ground as well as speed over ground. So I could select course over ground. It shows me what it looks like right now. If I click add, it actually puts it in the instrument panel. I might also want heading, perhaps, if I have heading data available. Some of the virtual instruments are configurable themselves in how they display. Heading is one of those. Heading can display as a compass, or as a compass ribbon, or as just the digital version. We can add that. Now that I've added those two, I'm going to close it. You notice Coastal Explorer added those two new instruments to the bottom of the panel. If I want to rearrange the panel, I hold down the Alt key on my keyboard and then click on the instrument and drag it to where I'd like to see it. So I want to see it up there. Again, holding down the Alt key, I click and drag the instrument that I want to move. If I want to change what an instrument looks like, I right-click on it and say Change Panel Type and put it in some other mode. Okay. Also, certain of the instruments are adjustable as far as their size, so I can make the speed over ground and the course over ground large text if I'd like. And additionally, if I put enough instruments in here that I eventually fill up this panel, I can have another instrument panel if I like. I click on the unused space in the tab part of the screen here and say create new pane. Creates instruments 2. I can click on that. I can put a new instrument in here. Perhaps in here I'd like to add a deactivate route button at the top and a route monitor, another route monitor. So I can have the route monitor in both places. I close that. And if I'd like, I can even change the name of these additionally created instrument panels by saying rename. Maybe I want this one to be route info. Okay. Alright, so that's it for configuring Coastal Explorer right this second. Oh, nope, I take that back. The last thing we might want to configure would be the boat. If I click on the boat tab on the right-hand side of the screen allows me to control how large the boat is on the screen, small, medium, large, what color it shows up, when we have an active route, whether we have a line to the active mark, a compass. You notice there's a compass rose around the boat right this minute. If you didn't want that, you could uncheck that. It goes away. If you had an instrument, a wind instrument, this would display the wind data coming in or wind data on the boat. And if the boat is in motion, I'll put the boat in simulated motion here. The boat's in motion, we get a predictor line in front of the boat. The predictor line shows where the boat will be at its current course and speed in 5 minutes according to this right here. If I make it 6 minutes, the predictor line gets longer. If I make it 3 minutes, the predictor line gets shorter. That's pretty handy.